Greetings, everyone. Look at that. We've got a big crowd. Um, I'm so glad to see everybody in here. I want to welcome you to Publishing Professionals Network. This is one of our monthly offerings. Publishing Professionals Network is an all-volunteer nonprofit association that promotes success in all aspects of bookmaking through education, career development, and community building. Um, this is an example of one of our monthly events. These are professional development workshops where we invite specialists such as Thad McIlroy uh, from the publishing industry to share their expertise and their knowledge with us. Today's event is Big Picture Publishing. We are super excited. But before we get started, I wanted to just encourage people, if you're not already um a member of PPN, we certainly encourage you to consider becoming a member. And you can do that on our website, which I will put the link in the chat. And also, just a heads up for everybody who's interested, we have our annual conference coming up in April. It's actually set for Friday, April 24th. It's an all-day in-person event in downtown Berkeley, and we are going to offer a pre-registration special price. It's going to be live early February, if you wanted to make a note of that. Again, I'll put it in the notes and we will be sharing all that information with you. So let's go ahead and get started. I want to welcome our guest today is Thad McIlroy. He is, amongst many things, he's a publishing technology analyst who covers AI, digital innovation, and works with publishing startups. He's based in San Francisco, as many of our members are here in the Bay Area. He's the author of The AI Revolution in Book Publishing, a concise guide to navigating artificial intelligence for writers and publishers. That's quite a title. He has a great site. It's called The Future of Publishing, which provides in-depth coverage of book publishing industry trends. And he's currently focusing on the intersection of AI with book authoring and publishing. So, without further ado, I want to welcome our guest, Thad McIlroy, to discuss the big picture publishing topic.
Great. Thanks so much, Jim. Thank you for that lovely introduction. I'm glad to be with you today. Let me get a slide up. Oh no, I got to switch, right? Of course. Switch from the other one. I got to do a share. Let me just do the right thing rather than the wrong thing here. And always with Zoom. Oh, okay, good. Got it. Sharing. How's that looking?
Looks
Am I?
good.
Oh, great. Okay. Welcome, everyone. This is my third webinar of the day already, and it's only noon. Um, but fortunately, it's my third and last. So I'm just going to pace myself a little bit. I'm breathless from the last one. I was speaking to a bunch of people on the East Coast, educational publishers. Anyway, whatever. Uh, I just want to, I was last night thinking about finalizing the slides for this and thinking, oh, I guess we'll have a few out of town guests. And so I did um, do the little intro that Jim has done far more adeptly, but it's also my then endorsement for Publishing Professional Network, which I've just been involved with a little more than a year, I guess. Helena Brantley very wisely brought me into the group, and it's been a wonderful first set of encounters. And the annual event last spring was really a delight. And so I'm pleased that Jim and Helena asked me to to take on this webinar, and we had different ideas and this and that. And then I said, what I really want to talk about is this topic of a holistic view of the responsible use of AI in book publishing. And I'm going to parse it a little bit. Let's see if how well I parse it here. Do I get no? Okay, I don't parse it. Okay, I parse it differently. What I wanted to point out then, we'll be talking about holistic for sure, and we'll be talking about responsible in many ways. Those two things are the theme today. So, I we'll look at, the issues of what represents responsible use because it's not like I've been talking about the irresponsible use, but I've not made responsibility up front and center as much as I feel that I should have and should be doing, and I'm going to do that today. And holistic, you'll see why I want this holistic approach as well, because I feel we've been a bit scattershot in the way that we've been looking at AI. So I'm trying to bring those two things together. I'm trying to look holistically at the landscape of AI tools and where we're headed, but to do it within a responsible context and to have that in our minds as we talk through these technologies. So you found out a little bit about me. My background is first and foremost in publishing. I spent the first 20 years or so of my career in book publishing per se and as an author per se, and then became enamored of the technology of publishing. And so I've spent the latter part of my career at the intersection of technology and publishing. And that included, first looking at AI in book publishing in the 1980s and finding AI fascinating and totally inapplicable to book publishing, and then letting that go until the mid about 2015, it started to rear its potential head in book publishing again. So I started drilling down a little bit on it there, mainly in the computational linguistics field, where it was actually making tremendous progress, the use of large language analysis, but not with the technologies at the level that they are today. At any rate, it blossomed, zapped us all in November 2022 with the release of ChatGPT, and has since then that's been my mission, as it were, is to follow this crazy raging technology that's grown out of the release of the first major consumer model of a large language model. So then, talking about responsible use of AI, and the concerns are so numerous. Um, that the list on the screen is probably most of them, not all of them. And I've been talking about this technology, better part of 3 years. I guess a little more than that. But it's more troubling today by far than it was 3 years ago. The issues are larger and more in our faces than they were even 6 months ago. And while some people explain off the environmental that we'll I don't know what we'll buy some extra wattage from some imagined African nation, or how it is that we're not going to, that we're going to have this infinite supply of electricity that will feed the voracious AI engines and not to, not to deplete any of the resources that we need as humans seems fanciful. And then you look at the potential for all kinds of things. We're seeing the fake content, and so it's in this milieu that we're moving forward with AI. And I always say to people, you can abstain. You don't have to go with this stuff. You can abstain. That's fine. The other thing that we, specifically in the publishing industry, have to carry around like a heavy shawl is this recognition that these AI companies stole this material that's our material, this millions of books and produced by millions of authors over many years. Whether they stole it, the judges will decide. But from our perspective, from our ethical perspective, it was purloined. It should not have been taken without authorization. And so that heavy mantle, is there as we, try to move forward with this technology. And so at that point, you could certainly say to someone, well, someone can say, forget it. I just don't want any part of it. And I'd be, yeah, fine, fine, absolutely fine. On the other hand, on with the show. It's there, it's amongst us, it's amazing, it's powerful, it's potentially transformative. And so I suggest moving forward, get to know the technology, get to recognize what it can do, what it can't do. It can do more than it can't do. And then decide. Make your final decision after you look closely at the technology and say, okay, yeah, I see all these amazing things it can do. Still don't want it. Or I see all these amazing things to do, and I'm going to try and incorporate it in my workflow in a responsible way, whatever exactly that means. That can't be defined with precision. I think each of us will know, what that means to us. Let's get to the holistic side of things. The way I've seen, perhaps naturally, the AI tools emerging is very much you can use it for this, you can use it for that, a bit of this, bit of that. The focus has tended to be on marketing. It has been for, past couple of years. Um, Naturally enough, it's so easy for ChatGPT to spit out a half decent press release. And so, oh, marketing, marketing, marketing. And then, do things like video, which are so dazzling. Wow, what can we do with video? But we don't do anything with video. Well, let's start doing something with video. Okay, with video. And then, something with editorial. Well, what did we do with it? And so on. So then, yeah, in the midst of this, also, I thought to put on this slide, we got the sinner's conundrum, which kind of relates to the responsible use of AI. And it's around the fact, I don't want to use any AI. Well, you're using a spell checker. That's not AI. Well, in fact, the spell checker is completely enabled through artificial intelligence. Well, I've had them for a long time. They weren't then. No, they weren't then, but they are now. And the grammar checkers are so good, so much better than they were because they are fully enabled by large language models. And so, on the one hand, you've got a very episodic use of the technology. On the other hand, you're into the responsible use of AI dilemma. Um, but these are the contradictions that we live with. And so, I've been wanting to put all of this together into something that represents something like a worldview of where we are today with the AI technology. And you are getting to see my first clumsy attempt at doing so. So, my starting point, and this is something I've trampled over quite a few times, but not in an AI context. Within publishing, I said a few minutes ago that, my work is at the intersection of technology and book publishing. And so, what that has encompassed is a lot of different technology. People who don't work in the technology trenches lose sight often of how much tech is actually imbued in the whole publishing infrastructure and across the editorial process and production processes and so on. There's a great deal of technology. Um, but at any rate, when we try to map these things out and try and get a holistic view of it, well, the first thing you have to do is try and get a holistic view of a publishing workflow. Well, good luck with that, as they say. The publishing industry has talked about workflows ad infinitum ad nauseum. And there are so few diagrams available. And you would think, well, why don't we have better publishing workflow diagrams? I just haven't seen them. They're out there somewhere. Anybody who's seen a good one, please, please, I'll send you a reward. Instead, we're left with these kind of the two that you see up on the screen. On the one hand, the one on the left, God bless him, nice infographic put out by the University Press of Florida on the life cycle of a book. Well, okay, it's sort of a workflow diagram. Why not? The one on the right is from last year's a book published last year, John Rudsvilla's book called Project Management for Book Publishers, which is a dry technical book that has those kind of, formalized workflow diagrams. But oddly enough, the book only has like three of them. So it's like he well illustrates very small parts of the workflow. And it's against this kind of a mapping that I start to try and see, well, how can I plug in AI tools into this workflow to try and create a holistic AI view of the workflow, or a workflow view with the AI tools holistically integrated. I'm not sure of the semantics here. This is a diagram that's in a book industry study group report on, on workflow. And well, I won't go into all that, but the report doesn't, in fact, have any illustrations in it of workflows other than this. This is the one illustration, their high level task interview in overview. Well, again, better than nothing, but not much of an overview. But again, in their favor, these illustrations, it's something, right? It starts to give us some conceptualization that, what we do in publishing is a series of steps towards a complete workflow towards the publication of a book. So then, where can we start to map tools and see if we can fit those into the whole? And I'm going to go with some specific tools, some lists of tools, and then try and bring that back together. So some of you who know me know that I have a mad quest to keep track obsessively, neurotically, with all of the new publishing tools that are technology enabled originally with the list. Now, many of them are AI enabled. I've got this database of over 1,800 startups that have launched in the last 20 years now to reinvent publishing in one way or another with their technology. You can find this database at the link there. Of course, I'll be giving these slides out for distribution. And you'll be kind of dazzled by it because it's just, an extraordinary number of companies have started up. Many have failed. A third maybe have failed. Others are sort of going along. Some have done quite well. But most interesting for our purposes is 345 as of last night have AI tools that fit the classification of AI and that AI is a primary part of their functionality, or they are enabled, AI enabled. And the vast number of them are focused towards authoring, not towards publishing per se. I get to my, ongoing fixation that the publishing workflow should be encompassing of the author's workflow. This database is encompassing of author activity. And so it includes a great many things that are directed towards self-published authors and other kinds of authors. But also things, for even for librarians, booksellers, definitely for publishers. It's all sorted. You can sort all of it and figure out which is which. And my dear sister Anne, the Madam Librarian, retired, works with me every couple of days to update the thing. So it's up to the moment. And yet last night, I'm going through it and going, oh gosh, that company's gone out of business. We have to delete them. Oh gosh, why don't we have that company? They're not in there. So that's the peril of trying to track 1,800 startups. But anyway, it's from that that I, move outward to the AI tools that I track. Now, you'll see in a couple of slides where some of them are obscure. These are the non-obscure ones. So here, what I feel it's important to point out to people is that, there's more to life than ChatGPT. Most people know that by now, not everybody. Some people know that there is more to life than ChatGPT, but have never gone there. And if you're going to, build your holistic AI workflow, you got to go there. You have got to use you. It is recommended that you may wish to consider using three tools. I always have three in your backpack. I My backpack contains right now ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini. I don't like Microsoft Copilot, though I'm willing to debate its value. Meta, Llama, they've kind of fallen a little bit off the trail, although they just released a product yesterday that I found to be very powerful. So I may fall in love with them again, if only briefly. Perplexity is another dog in my house, though I check in on it to see if it's behaving better. DeepSeek intrigues me because it's Chinese and open source. Well, what could be more exotic? Though I don't have the time to use that as much as I'd like to. I don't have the time to use any of these things as much as I would like to. So I stick with three and find, they each have different personalities. Claude, we often were saying a year ago, a bit more than that, it was it had the best facility with language, so that if you were, trying to write or rewrite things, Claude was often the best way to go. Some people feel that ChatGPT has become more fluent, but that's where these things sort of so you can't just settle on one and say I use that because the others, they move up and down, and you have to move between them, be able to move between them within your toolkit. Authoring, this is one where I didn't bother putting out a whole list because if you go into my database, you'll see well over 100 tools for AI authoring. It's I really don't know what it is other than exhausting. Because some of them are quite intriguing. They really are intriguing. I always put up pseudo right because it's kind of a gold label, or maybe not quite gold, but somewhere there. It's been around for a few years. It predates ChatGPT and had to be rewritten for LLMs. It has a very high satisfaction rate amongst its users. But there's a lot of others that are there and people don't, if you're not in the authoring game, you may tend to dismiss the value, and it's out, and we hear so much about, AI generates such garbage and all this stuff. Well, yeah, but in fact, these tools are helping authors to produce some very strong material. And both in, I mean, I'd say particularly in fiction, obviously not, the next Margaret Atwood, but certainly, genre fiction for these things it's second nature. So how high up the level of fiction writing can these tools get? We shall see. For nonfiction, it's a whole other game of research and writing and rewriting and checking and running against other sources. And so there's a different tool set for that. I have 80 tools that, God, which last night I had to write to Anne and say, one day soon we're going to have to incorporate that other list I've been keeping of the tools for the more scholarly nonfiction writers, and we're going to have to add them into the main database. And I had a sigh of exhaustion about that. But so there's tons of stuff and amazing stuff, just amazing stuff. So I thought I'd drill down on one, for instance, manuscript acquisition. Well, what do we got there? Three, six, seven pieces of software that one way or another, they're never identical. They always take a slightly different approach. One way or another, want to enable publishers to improve the task of manuscript acquisition. Several of them, Book Scout, my Pulitzer, partly qualification and quantification, yes, they do qualitative analyses of the submitted manuscript towards some sort of recommendation as to the value of that manuscript, which of course is anathema and the worst horror for any author to imagine that their publisher would have a machine at the gate chewing their manuscript as it crosses the threshold and declaring it to be substandard in some way for some reason that the machine, has enabled. But there it is. Any publishers using it, virtually no one, but it puts out the question of whether that would be a tool. I think it's a interesting tool. We'll leave it at that. Other things like Storywise is more about, yeah, Storywise is a sort of manuscript organizer. It does do subject analysis and manages matches against subject requirements from the publisher, subject submission from the author. So it's an efficiency tool that has some merit and is getting a little bit of traction. And Veristage, the last one, we'll look at where that fits in with manuscript acquisition. It's a whole separate story. Editing, oh my goodness, too. It's I just put up a small list of some of the tools, that are usable for incorporating AI into the editing task. Of course, you have to separate, oh, editing books. Well, no, actually, there's identifying submissions, identifying comps, looking at marketing opportunities right up front at the acquisition stage, developmental editing, line editing, copy editing, proofreading. Each of these are not unrelated, but some quite unrelated, but interconnected. Let's call them tasks. And the tools, some of them tackle just one, like proofreading or copy editing. Others multiple. For some of these, you'll use a general purpose tool like Claude or ChatGPT, and set it upon the task, that the editing task that you're faced with. Others, you like Edit GPT is really just a copy editing tool. So you would use that as a discrete tool for that discrete um, task. Design, how interesting that's become. It's again so controversial, right, author? You would not use an AI tool to design my cover. How about comps? Can we use it for comps? Well, maybe, it's like, yeah, because we want to try out 12 different designs and we want to do it quickly and we want to be able to show those to our sales staff and share them with some booksellers and send them to key accounts. And if we can get them up by next week, we'll be able to meet the meeting deadline. Can we use it for that? Oh, well, and so we're going to have a lot of these dilemmas where, in the end, dear author that is understandably, very hesitant about the use of these tools, but we can sell a whole bunch more of your books this way. And that's where it's really going to be tough in the months and years ahead. and authors are going to have to face the similar dilemmas for the responsible use of AI. What does that represent to them as an author, if indeed this hated and understandably hated technology can make them earn some more money in a profession that's not a profession one where most earn much money. It would seem, but not for me to judge. So with design, mock-ups, collateral, advertising, social media, a lot of this, social media sounds easy until you actually do it. And, you've got 5 different channels. They want, content uploaded at least once every 3 days, has to include a graphic. The graphic has to be a singer, should be a video. No publisher's got time for that. But, with an AI-enabled workflow, they have time for that and they can do some very high quality work. Author, would you like me not to do that? So, and for the publisher, as well, we don't do that. Well, you could do that. You'd sell more books. Well, maybe we should do that. You have many tools, here where you can do that. And then again, can we re relate them in a holistic workflow? Let that be our sort of cloud as we think about all of these things. Production's interesting too to me because it was there's a I think of it as a kind of a place. There's a magical place in my mind between the best of machine automation and day-to-day AI. Because what I've seen, I worked in production for years and years, and we got so good in InDesign and in PDF workflows. Those workflows, people aren't familiar with them, don't realize how highly automated they are, how much error checking they have built in, how much they smooth out the process compared to what it was 10, 15 years ago. So this stuff zings along, and you look at it and say, it must be AI that does that. No, it's actually just machine learning. Not even that, it's a one level down in terms of just sort of process automation. But process automation at that level, looks like some pretty good AI. And so, there's an interesting border that we reach here, and it's a good one, and it's porous, where if you can achieve the goal of maximum automation and minimum error by whatever technology, then you are one with the gods of AI or whatever gods they are. And in production, we've managed to do that. I'm not seeing a whole lot of new stuff coming on that's going to make a difference. I found last night I was trying to find something. I found a few tools that are made to do a machine learning based analysis of the page proofs prior to going to press. That was a lot of P's, wasn't it? And the can do some of that. And so they're AI enabled at a image level and of interest to production people. So I'm trying to carry through the cycle. Or here, most of you will have no interest in these. So coming back to the publishing workflow, then, this is a real. I did this 10 minutes before the presentation because I thought, well, Thad, you got to bring it all back together. Okay, so put the illustration back and then get some of the software. And I was just trying to get all the little arrows on the screen when the 12 o'clock bell rang. And yes, so you get the idea. So now what you do, I showed you all those tools, and now you've got your own workflow chart and tool set, and you now, plug it in, and now you have your own very own holistic AI publishing workflow. So that we have a small commercial pause here, sip of water because there is a bit more to talk about. So then there is a company called Veristage, that have done this for you. And it's a little bit like the Adobe Creative Suite or the Microsoft Suite, where you've got all these different tools that are unified and interoperate, and you can, move some of the material from one to another. Um, but it's not quite a suite because it's not a bunch of standalone tools. It's a single piece of software. So in that way, it's more like, God, I don't know. Actually, I don't know. It's more like something. But it also, the proof is in the pudding. So then I asked Veristage to create a demo that I could share with you, and they did, and it was half an hour long. And I said, could you create a shorter demo that I can share with them? And they did, and it's 9 minutes long, and it comes with a script that is breathtakingly difficult to read. And so, what I did then instead was open up my copy of Veristage, and let's see if I can share that with you and can do my own clumsy little demo of the software. Because the main thing will be if I can give you a chance to get an idea of how this stuff works. I think it's a very good tool. I think there's all kinds of I've watched them for a couple of years now. I met them first at Frankfurt in 2023 and liked what they were up to. It made sense to me. Conflict of interest declaration, my AI book, they are a sponsor. You'll see them in the back of the books, an advertiser essentially. And so I did receive money from them. And so I'm biased by that. But I do like very much what they're doing. So let's see if we can if I can share that with you. Is that the right one? Might be the wrong screen. Veristage. Oh yeah. Do you see a screen doc X in the upper corner?
Yes.
You're seeing what I'm seeing? Oh, good. Okay. So not the most dazzling interface you've ever seen, but we don't care. We're trying to get some work done. So the amongst the several things that I like a lot about it is it introduces the concept that I think is really terrifically important for the future of the use, the most effective use of AI in book publishing is to bring the manuscript into the system, whether it be your own constructed workflow or you're using this software right at the beginning. You're going to get the most impact from AI if you're using it from the get-go, from the moment the manuscript arrives. And you'll see how with Veristage, how they approach that. So I have my AI revolution in book publishing there. Now what I can do with it, so pretend that I just submitted it to your publishing company. You're looking at it, you brought it in. Right away, you can do an AI chat with it and say, let's see, what's this book about? One thing I love about AI chat is it's very forgiving of spelling errors. So did I get that? Let me see here. Part of the problem is I'm partly blocked by the interface from Zoom. Let me just see if I can get past that. Yeah, I can't get past that. So is it getting? Yeah, okay. Yeah, this is why, of course, you don't do live demo. Yeah, not sure which book you mean, but so as with every live demo, it's going to be weird, but you'll try and get some sense of it. So that was the chat feature that actually works, but I think because I hadn't uploaded my manuscript. Anyway, so then, yeah, then right at that point, you've got a whole bunch of actions you can take. You can create artwork for a book. Why would you do that at the beginning? Who knows? You can create a report and download it. You can translate the book. You can export the tools. You can share, delete, upload new version. Yes, oh, that's all very well and good. Now, if I could only clear my screen a bit. It's not very dazzling what I've showed you so far, and I can't. So hard to demo on this thing. Okay, let's see if we can get this memo open. Upload search, my projects. Yeah, this is going to demo, but believe me, this is not as painful as it is that you're watching this. Um, you would find the video even more painful. So I think I'm going to have to evoke this verbally as we're getting nowhere with my uh, coming out of nowhere demo. Yeah, we're getting nowhere with that. All right. So imagine that this tool at various stages does various of the functions that I was showing you that could be done with individual pieces of software. So with Veristage, you can do a lot of editing tools. You can do the copy editing. You can do, in fact, comprehensive, what are we calling it? The words begin to fail me. Not comprehensive, the substantive edit at the beginning in terms of, looking at basic flaws and the reasoning and so on in the logic of the manuscript. Developmental editing, I was thinking of. You can, of course, translate. That was an easy one. They can create indexes. So just imagine again that everything that I've shown up to now gets blended into one strong piece of software from one single company, one single sort of support, sorts of support, one single source for updates of the software. That's a really desirable feature. So what are the drawbacks? Well, there's always drawbacks. The drawbacks include that you're reliant now on this one particular piece of software. What if you see, for example, this indexing software that I saw last week that's so very, very good? Well, what if it's better than what's in Veristage? Well, it probably is because they've devoted themselves just to that task. And so you'll always be seeing that there's a little shiny thing here, there, and everywhere that actually works better than the thing that's in the suite. And so that will be a bit awkward. There'll be, tools that you want to get in, and you keep asking them, when are you going to add that tool? And they say, well, we've got a long list and it's number 7 on our, list of new priorities. So that's always a drawback. But for me, at this stage in the world of AI, I think that, this might be the most efficient, the most effective way for most book publishers to take on the challenges of an AI implementation. For others, the episodic approach might be preferable, and you could just start with one or two tools. So I wanted to show alternatives. I wanted to show holistic by concept, holistic by realization, pluses and minuses of each. Hence my demo.
Thanks, Thad. We've got a really full room, and you've raised a gazillion interesting topics. So I'm sure there are questions that people have, and now would be a great time to launch the Q&A portion.
I saw a bunch of chat seemed crowded as could be, or is that mostly your stuff?
No, 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 no. There are definitely questions in the chat.
Can you MC the questions?
Yeah, let me just bounce on over. There was a question about indexing, whether we have discussed that.
Didn't I? So I mentioned it right at the end. I'm having this being my third webinar today. Did I talk about this piece of software called Indexia?
I see it in the notes, but I don't believe you discussed it.
So Indexia a year and a half ago created my first book index using my own book, just using ChatGPT. And the first attempt it made at indexing was really, sort of child's version. And then said, go deeper, go deeper. And then I said, do you know the Chicago Manual of Styles approach to indexing? And it said, yes, I do. And so it did that in accordance with the Chicago Manual. I didn't fully check against the tome to make sure it got that right. But at any rate, I was willing to go along with the ride. Uh, as anyone who's worked with an index or indexer or it has indexed themselves knows that this is not child's play. And Indexia is the first piece of software. Bill, I see on the call, has seen it as well. I'm very, very impressed by what they're doing. And they're taking an AI style of approach in as much as you can take what you get, like you can push the button, get the index, take that, go with that if you don't know what you're doing and want to fine tune it. But if you want to fine tune it, my goodness, they are building in a whole lot of levels of control. And that's what I like to see, something that where it's easy to use, gives you a, good quick result that for many people will be good enough. And for those who are more demanding, allows you to go to that deeper level.
Yeah, I want to point out that there are some excellent links that have been added regarding indexing that people have placed in the chat room. But I did see a more general question that I thought was really interesting. So this is from Jason. Do you see the future of publishing and its employees being taken over by professional collaboration with AI, including prompt development as a core skill? And if so, what recommendations do you have for preparation and navigating this transition?
Thank you for that question. That's very near and dear to my heart. Uh, you, Publishing is going through a transition well, it's going through all kinds of transitions anyway, but AI transition is, cataclysmic in parts of publishing. Trade publishing up to now has been largely unscathed. That won't remain, but scholarly publishing is just going through a vast amount of change very rapidly at every stage of the process. And this will seep towards trade publishing as well. But in the meantime, what that points out is that publishing organizations have a really big responsibility to their staff, right? We can't just say, well, things are changing, fasten your seatbelts, let us know how you're making out. They've got to be reaching out and helping their staff to navigate this transformation. And so, helping their staff acquire those skills should be their number one priority. And it is their number one responsibility. My first call of the morning was with a group where I've been trying for a year and a half to build a robust training program that publishing companies and staff could use that would bring them up to a level of conversancy where they could feel enabled to use the tools in their job because there's nothing yet that really does that.
Okay. There's another. This question is specific to Veristage. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yep.
This is what, if any, concerns about safeguarding author intellectual property do you have with Veristage?
Zero. Uh, Only because they've been obsessive about that. And when you go to the site, you'll see they've got it's like level C2, security certification kind of thing. So they know that they can't successfully sell and support their product without a very high level of security of the content that circulates through their product. So for them, zero concern.
Okay, similar. I wanted to add a question related to that, not specific to Veristage. When it comes to free versus pay with these software applications, what is the level, between them in terms of intellectual property protection? I know that with the free version, there's relatively zero.
That's not true, Jim.
Okay.
Um, I, my understanding, I could be wrong, certainly, um, is that even with the free versions, you need to go into the options, or you are advised to go into the options and flip the switch. You'll see, with various of the software, there's a way to sort of say, do not use my material for training or words like that. Google Gemini out of the box, and I think Claude as well out of the box say, we do not use your material for training. Now, that being said, many people say to me, well, do you trust them? And to which I reply, well, no, of course not. So we're left in that slightly gray zone.
So my understanding, and again, I could be completely wrong on this, is that with paid subscriptions, it's only with subscriptions that you get the option to turn it off.
I don't think so, but I
Okay.
haven't tested that lately. But I've never seen that as being, you always see on the list of what you get if you pay the 20 bucks a month. What you usually get is just access to the latest features, security, as I understand it. But again, please check for yourselves, and if you don't see where the button is, Google, how do I make sure in ChatGPT that my material is not being used for training? And it will explain what the latest toggle is or whatever. And how can I be sure with the free version? And it will explain in a way that may leave you going, well, don't quite believe it, but that's where it stands.
Okay. Um, Other people, I would encourage shoot us a question in the chat room. Um, let's see. I'm just taking a quick look at some of the things that came up.
Were any of them saying, God, gosh, McIlroy, get off the screen. We don't want to hear any more of your
No,
AI.
but like you, there's some fellow Canadians here.
Oh, good. Well, we always recommend Jim being a fellow Canadian. That's
Let's see.
great.
I'm just taking a quick look. One of the things that Dave Peaty, one of the board members for PPN, he's pointed out that and he's posted the link that addresses, let's see here. It is, what did he say? Oh, well, actually, it comes from Elizabeth. Elizabeth tells us that there was a presentation on AI and indexing for PPN in the fall. I'm relatively new to the board, so I apologize that I didn't know that. And the recording is available on YouTube, and Dave Peaty follows it up with a link to that video for those that want to know more about AI and indexing,
Yeah,
which
the
that's
American Society of Indexers, I believe, is the name, ASN. They're amazing, right? If you're into indexing, there is its own association. I've done a webinar for them, was not assassinated during the webinar, though, the purists consider AI, the purist translators, the purist indexers are, of course, very against AI. It's job threatening, but they also don't feel, that it's up to scratch. And again, obviously not up to the highest standards. Uh, and it's worth knowing what are the highest standards that we're trying to judge against. And I'm not in favor of the grading of standards, but I am in favor of the use of these tools for efficiency. I saw a question come through from John Warren about AI and metadata. And that's also been a kind of low-hanging fruit for AI because, it depends on what you mean by metadata, of course, and John knows a great deal about it. Of course, superficially, we metadata from a trade book perspective is, mostly the stuff that's, used for reselling books. So it's the BISAC terms, it's the meta, the keywords, the descriptions, uh, that kind of thing. And AI aces that. I mean, that one's a no-brainer, not a thing. More detailed kinds of metadata challenges, also no-brainer for large language model. In the session I was in a little earlier today, it was with an educational publishing company, and metadata in the educational sphere is quite different. But they were also asking about AI discoverability in the age of AI, which in theory at least, is driven by metadata. And it occurred to me for the first time that, I've always said that the best metadata about a book is the entire book. But there's never been a way to capture the entire book and transform it or translate it or to transfigure it as metadata. And now AI can do that. And so we're entering into this new era where, the metadata, it becomes quite absurd. You've got the meta of the meta of the meta, which brings you back to the original. And so the future of metadata is simply unlabeled data.
Okay, I've got I want to be respectful of time, but I wanted to address something near and dear to my heart, an editorial question. And this
Sure.
is coming from Johanna. How good do you think the manuscript acquisition tools are in terms of providing developmental editing notes?
I think they're great,
Okay.
right? And the great that the question is notes, right? It's not decisions, it's not acceptance and rejection. It's notes, it's advice, it's insights, it's you might want to think of. And when you take it there, you go, no, that has no relevance, or wow, I would never have thought of that.
Okay. Well, we are at our time, but I do want to encourage people to follow Thad on LinkedIn. Thad, is there another method of following your expertise that you would recommend?
I'd like my people to come to my blog,
Okay.
futurepublishing.com.
What is it again?
I
Say that. Okay.
thefutureofpublishing.com. I blog infrequently, but with lots, quite. I have long blogs infrequently, uh, and so you can sign up for, there's a way to sign up for emails when there is a new blog post. And so I love sharing those with everyone.
Okay. I also want to point out as we close down that all of the topics that we've discussed here today, we're going to do a specific panel at our conference in April that is going to cover all of this as well. As you know, it's impossible to avoid, and because it's so fast changing, it's fascinating. So our conference again is coming up in April. And pre-registration will begin in early February. We'll put that in the notes. But lastly, I just want to thank Thad for sharing your expertise with us in this noon Zoom that everybody took the time to attend.
Well, thank you, Jim, for inviting me. Thank you for Helena for co-facilitating this happening. And thanks everyone for being here today. It's nice to have a large crowd to chat with.
Well, you must be exhausted. You've had what you said this is your fourth, third?
No, third,
Uh,
a mere third.
it's
It's
only my
wonderful.
second, so I'm still raring to go.
That's great. Good. Hey, let's do a couple more.
Yeah.
Good. Well,
And if
yes, thanks
if people have
everyone.
any questions about PPN, including becoming a member or even sponsoring the conference or the organization, all of this information is available at our website, and the URL again is in the notes, as is everything. And we will be sharing this presentation as a video to everybody who joined, and it will include Thad's presentation slides as well.
Oh yeah, definitely.
which we're
I'll
very
send them.
grateful
I'll
for.
send them right over to them. I'll send them over now, Jim.
Okay, very, very extensive.
Good. Okay. Farewell.
Well, thank you so much, Thad.
You're welcome. My pleasure.